Hello and welcome to another episode of How Are You Holding Up? A mental health podcast by the depressed for the depressed. I'm Lindsey.
And I'm Chris.
And we want to wish you a happy new year. We made it, 2020.
2020, yay, we made it. Nobody died.
We skipped last week due to an unfortunate series of stomach flu events.
Yes, which, Lindsey, how are you holding up?
I'm healthy, thank you.
That's good. I mean, I'll take that.
Yeah, we wanted to do one last episode in 2019, but that did not happen. How are
Yeah.
you holding up, Chris?
I'm very tired. I've had a long week, long couple of weeks actually. The holidays never really go well with me or my mental state, which is super cool. But otherwise, I enjoyed having the holidays and I enjoyed kind of getting back to work, and that was, that's how I'm doing. But
Yeah, I
that's
had this was my first Christmas without my grandma. The last few
mm,
years I've been going up to Alaska and spending the Christmas holiday with her. And she passed last year.
mm-hmm.
And I keep dreaming about her. I keep dreaming she's alive. So that's been an interesting experience.
Yeah, no, I can absolutely imagine.
Yeah.
Did you guys do anything special to kind of pay homage to all those years, or?
Well, no, we got together with some family members down here in Cali that we usually don't, and just read some of we read poetry on Christmas Eve, and we read one of her favorite poems. So,
Well, that's
we barely
nice.
got through that. So, it's
Yeah,
hard when you've lost someone, as I'm sure some of you guys know.
yeah,
Um,
no, for sure.
but this episode, you guys, we wanted to talk about a couple things. One,
Yes.
we wanted to talk about the direction for our show. As you guys know, it's just Chris and I doing this. We're not sponsored. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
we do have a Patreon, which is our sponsorship for now. And then
Mm-hmm.
we wanted to also discuss where Chris and I are, because the first episode, we talked about ourselves, who we were, and it's been over a year now. So we thought we would kind of check in first episode of 2020 and talk about who we are, where we are, um, and our mental health journey.
Yay!
Yay! So, sorry, I'm trying to get comfortable in a chair that has arms, and I'm trying to sit cross-legged, and it's just really not going over well.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, I can wholeheartedly relate to that.
um, so I thought we could start off with some small celebrations. This wonderful listeners. We thought we'd talk about some of our stats with you guys because we're really proud of it. As you guys know, our podcast kind of sprung up from just wanting to help people and to discuss what we were going through, because it's such a relief, I think,
Yes.
when you can hear other people are going through something similar.
Hmm.
So we thought we'd kind of celebrate that a little bit. So, Chris, you have some stats you want to share?
I do. So, as of today, since that's when I more or less looked up the stats, uh, from the beginning of our podcast to the current day, we have had over 32.6 thousand downloads of every episode,
Not bad.
spaced out over 70 episodes. That is pretty good, I do want to say. We are, I would say, the most downloads that we get are from the United States. That would seem obvious, but then it's scattered across a lot of different countries. 85 in Brazil, 38 in South Africa, 26 in Saudi Arabia. We have 812 in Australia, 832 in Russia. The numbers just go on and on and on. And we are forever just amazed that there are so many people just all over the world tuning in because they felt drawn to learning more about their own mental health.
So, if you're feeling kind of isolated or alone, or you're going through depression right now, just know that there are tons of other people who are experiencing really similar stuff that you are.
Yes.
We're not alone in this.
We have been ranked on Apple Podcasts as in the top 100 at one point mental health podcasts in America, which
5 out of 5 stars. Thank you guys.
yes, thank you all so much for your ratings, your reviews. We have maintained a 5-star rating somehow.
Okay. This is something Chris and I discussed, and I know we touched on it, I think, last time, but we really thought we were going to get some nasty reviews or comments because, look, when you're being vulnerable and you're talking about mental health, it's such an easy target, and the
Yep.
internet is cruel.
Yep.
But you guys have all been so wonderful. We haven't gotten any negativity.
No, you guys are amazing. Aside from all of that, you want to know what the top 10 episodes? I can at the very least. It's funny, they haven't really changed a whole much. The top 10, like the first 5, are all really early episodes.
Yeah.
But then you go into the lower parts of the top 5, and they're fairly newer episodes. Like, you guys really enjoyed the dysthemia episode that we did, the episode on numbness, our episode on chronic illness and depression was also quite popular. That was the one that we had new on, and she was a wonderful guest. We were definitely going to have her back. So we're definitely going to try a few more things this year to kind of springboard us forward in terms of the content that we want to give to you guys.
Yeah, I was recently talking to one of my best friends, and she was like, I'm just really impressed that you guys keep coming up with new episode ideas because you'd think that there was only so much you could talk about with depression and anxiety.
Yes.
And it's true. What we don't want is we don't want to become too preachy or too much on the educational side coming from us because, again, we're not professionals, but we do want to have some flow of education going on for all of us because we're all growing and learning together. You guys are coming along with us on the ride. And so we
Yep.
do want to have more interviews with people who know what they're talking about.
Yes, absolutely. We have a couple that we are definitely going to be looking into in the coming weeks that stay tuned for those.
We do want to attempt some more experiments. We did a couple last year. We
Mm-hmm.
did the float tank, deprivation
Yes.
tank, which was awesome.
And
And
I still want to go back
I
again.
want to go back. And we did the B12 shot, which I loved the B12 shot.
Yes.
Changed my life.
B12.
I remember I was going into a depression when I got the B12 shot, and it took me right out. So that was kind of
That's
amazing for
great.
me at the time.
That is super
Um,
great.
yeah. So this year we want to do more of those. And I know that for me, I get socially anxious, even if it's not anything too stressful, like a small thing, like, oh, we're just gonna go and but going to a new place, finding parking, that can be stressful. So I feel like Chris and I going together, first of all, helps my stress, but also maybe it can let you guys see what the experience could be like. And so
Mm-hmm.
you'll know what you're going into should you want to try something.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Um, so we do have something that we've been talking about privately for a while, but we're going to have merch.
Yes.
And I'm excited for the merch because I I like the dark humor and I want to have something to hold on to that is like, oh, I made a podcast. Here is something that is from this podcast. One of those like, oh, I went to hell and all I got was a stupid t-shirt. Like that kind of
Yes.
thing.
I have I have depression and all I got was this stupid t-shirt.
Yeah, I want merch from my depression, God damn
I have depression and all I got was this crippling self-sacrifice.
it. Yeah, so just some silly stuff. And then we have our Patreon. We don't want to get too much into that, but it's just more less about the money, more about the experiences that we can provide. So we
Yes.
want to do a Discord.
Yes.
And if you're
Want to
new
be
to
able
this,
to
yeah, go
yeah.
ahead.
No, we want to be able to have open communication also with you, the audience, because we feel that could be beneficial for all of us, honestly.
Yeah, I go through a lot of loneliness and depression and feeling disconnected when I'm in my depressions. And so you guys are just as helpful for us as, podcasts hopefully is for you, I hope.
Hmm.
So
And getting
that's
to
pretty
gamer.
much,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, and getting together and playing some games and really kind of, shooting the shit, so to speak. It could be, it's enough where when you don't want to go out, but you still want to be involved with other people. There you go. There's a way.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll see more of you guys on our Patreon so we can all be gamers together and talk and chat and get weird on the internet.
Yes.
But that's it, I think, for what we're planning on for this year. And of
Mhm.
course, to continue what we've sharing openly what we're going through. Um, and now we are going into our mental health journey. Chris, take us
Yes.
away.
So,
Who are you?
I am a mess, but I am a mess who recognizes his messiness. I have I it's funny, I kind of wish I had listened to our first episode to get a grasp of where I was then.
Hmm.
But I don't know. It's such a weird thing to think about, my progression, my journey, my how far I've come, because I do a lot of looking back and seeing where I was in a more literal sense, in terms of I have, Facebook does no shortness of reminding me of where I was 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. Because, if you log on, here's where you were 5 years ago today.
Look
That's
at how
great.
thin you were.
Well, look at how thin you were. Look how happy you look. Isn't that something? So I get that on a daily basis, and it
Yeah.
just cripples me for a few minutes every day. I could just sit there and go, "Oh yeah, yeah, those were good times. Those are dead now."
But this year,
But
you got
this year,
yeah, a therapist.
I've gotten a therapist. I've gotten a psychiatrist. I've spent honestly a lot of time with people outside of my own home, which was a blessing.
Yeah.
I've been doing well in work. Um, I feel accomplishments there that I've also been given a degree of, gratitude for from the company, which is already kind of amazing in and of itself. It was something I went a decade without getting, basically, in my previous employment. So now I look into 2020 and I think of where I was in 2015 and where I was in 2010. And somewhere in between there, I hit a breaking point in my own mental health where I wanted to be better and I didn't want anything to get in my way.
Yeah.
And I did. I did just that. This year feels like that's going to happen again. I'm not there yet. And that is something that I'm still trying to figure out. Like I get so in my own head so much of the
Yeah.
time still, even with, I have the gratitude journal, I have the therapist, I have the psychiatrist, I have all of these things that I am doing constantly to try and assuage those dark thoughts, those deep emotional sinkholes that I will fall into at a moment's notice. And I'm still uncertain as to what will drag me into the light if it's not myself.
How's your medication feeling? Because that's a newer thing the last few months.
It is. It is a newer thing. After we went back down to 150 milligrams, I feel nothing in particular as far as I can tell.
Okay,
I don't feel anxious
that's good.
with the lower dosage, which is, yeah, that is a positive. I don't feel any I I don't think I feel low because I'm more of a not necessarily a flat line like I was before. I
Yeah.
absolutely knew when I was on Lexapro when I was in a flat line of emotion, but this doesn't feel like that. This feels more like a calmness that is often interrupted by an extreme sense of agitation, which is,
That's interesting.
isn't it? It's the weirdest feeling because I can feel calm as hell for a good like few days, and then
Yeah.
something will happen and my zen is broken and everything around me is grating.
Ooh.
Like, I'm not certain if that's something from the Wellbutrin or if that is just the result of everything else in my life and how they interact. But
You
that
weren't
is,
you weren't
yeah.
sleeping super great in most of 2019, but then you took steps to get better sleep hygiene, we called it.
Yes, I did. I got the new bed and now I don't think I've had too many days in the last few months where I haven't gotten at least 8 hours of sleep,
Wow.
but I still feel exhausted waking up. And that
Mm,
is no good.
that sucks.
Yeah, it's definitely not the best, but it is, it is what it is. So, as for this year, I like to think that I'm going to finally find that spark that drives me to betterment. And I think that the fact that I would like to think that is already a step in the right direction.
I would agree. How about your
Lindsay.
health? No, no, no. How about your
Uh,
health?
oh, my physical health?
Yes,
Garbage. Complete and total garbage. I have done very little to successfully assuage where I've been going in a physical state. I have not taken steps to exercise. I have not taken steps to get outside more. I have done very little to actively improve my physical health. And I recognize it.
yep.
And it sucks.
Do you want to work on it this year, do you think?
I do, but that comes with the whole I need to want to make myself better thing. And that is not easy for me
Yeah.
in any way, shape, or form. And it doesn't help either that I'm waiting for some sort of grand
Yeah, I was gonna
inspiration.
say you're waiting for something that's gonna like a lightning strike of like, oh, now I can do it, rather than just like starting to create a new pattern of exercise.
Yeah, it's funny. I've been planning on it for so long.
I wonder if you're glorifying your past self's push to do it.
Well, my past self, I also kind of feel was the biggest problem that I have with my past self was that he did not do it by himself.
Yeah.
And that is something that I've been trying so goddamn hard to do this time because
Why?
ultimately I feel I need to do it by myself or else this will just be a pattern that repeats
Mm,
endlessly. I will sit there and I will get complacent or I will stop exercising or I will stop eating right because now I've done it and that's not what it is. Feeling
yeah.
healthy is not just a one-time push and you're good. It's a constant battle. The self-esteem that comes with it is a constant battle. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
So just getting that that momentary drive, that push, that getting out of bed and getting ready and going and exercising.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hell, I got to the point where I was so desperate to try and I want to make the exercise as little like responsibility as possible. Just give me like let me have an exercise bike at home. Something like that where it's just
Yeah.
like there, no excuse. It's there. Do it.
Yeah.
And even that, yeah, I can't even just like get up and do push-ups. That's how exhausted I feel in the mornings. I'm
In
trying.
the evenings aren't an option, like a walk with your doggo after work.
In the evenings, that's after the amount of mental taxation. I've been just going to bed early almost nightly.
Yeah.
That's what sucks. I feel like I don't know. It's such a weird thing. But maybe tomorrow morning could be that first step.
You never know.
Yeah. So that's me, Lindsay.
um, this was a year that it was probably one of the most life-changing years for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I stopped going to my therapist,
Mm-hmm.
not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't afford it. I didn't have health insurance for the first time. I just, yeah, couldn't afford it. I struggled a lot with finances.
Yeah.
Um, and I struggled a lot with social stuff this year as well as physical health. I had a lot of physical health problems, and a lot of it is pain. I'm in a lot of pain now,
Mm-hmm.
um, and that freaks me out. I've gained weight. I have a lot of brain fog. Um, but this year, I took control and I allowed myself to fall in love, which was a
Yeah.
huge step for me,
Sure did.
and try to be communicative with that person and be my most honest representation of myself as I could be, and just hope that that was good enough. In the past, I've been pretty codependent, jealous, controlling, manipulative, not because I would plan that out, but because that was what I knew of how to be in a relationship and what,
Yeah.
love was. And it's kind of all these pitfalls of going through someone's phone, um, making them feel bad because they didn't text me when they told me they would text me because they forgot or stuff like that. Constantly thinking that they were cheating or whatever. And
Yeah.
so I really, really practiced the work that I did because prior to this partner, I had been single for a while and I had been reading a lot and watching YouTube videos and going to therapy and trying to work through my codependency, which I am still struggling with. I will struggle with for the rest of my life with my friendships, especially and I want to have an episode on codependency, but it's a lot. I think when most people think of codependency, they think of somebody who's in a relationship with like an alcoholic and they enable them. But that can also, codependency can also look like taking responsibility of that person's emotional reactions. So if someone
Mm-hmm.
sighs, oh, what's wrong, honey? What can I do? Do you need something? Are you, or vice versa, being the person who sighs because you'll get a reaction out of that person, the kind of
Yeah.
manipulative game. So that was me in a nutshell. So really trying to practice healthy relationship, which I'm proud of because I don't know if I've ever had a healthy, happy relationship, and that's really sad. I'm 31,
Uh, I mean, I'm 32 and
so
I'm in the same boat, so.
yeah, and so working through a lot of those past traumas. This was I reached out to, um, I have cut out somebody from my family. They were extremely abusive, verbally and emotionally, especially in high school to me and my early 20s. And it kind of obliterated my self esteem. And so I had to cut them out to be
Yes.
able to heal. And this year, I tried to take them to therapy, and it didn't go over really well. They talked about themselves and how they could have died in those years where we weren't talking, and they didn't seem to understand the reason I cut them out, which is very
Hmm.
hard for me to do. Anyway, I digress. I contacted them, and we went out to dinner, and I let them meet my partner.
Yeah. And that's a big
Um,
thing.
yeah, we paid for the dinner. Yay, financial stability.
Yay, financial
Um,
stability.
and it was really nice. I also took control of my living situation with the help of my partner. We really figured out that we wanted to kind of live an alternative lifestyle, I guess, compared to the
Hmm.
LA city dwellers. We moved out of LA, where so many
Which,
people move to, and we moved up into the mountains where it snows, and got a cabin.
yeah.
And that was a huge battle for us with some family members and friends who were really not happy about that choice.
It's so funny to think about because you now in that place, I would say, might be the happiest I've ever seen you.
Really?
Hmm. Yeah.
That's
Waking
cool.
up in a place that you are comfortable, in a place that you are loved and safe, and you've got your dog,
Yeah.
and you are able to go there and just escape from everything else going on down here.
Yeah.
Like, no, I don't think I've ever seen you this happy, and I cannot state how happy I am for you.
Chris has known me since middle school, so it's been a while.
Yep. Every other time that I feel like I had seen you happy, there was always kind of a an underlying sadness or almost the same thing that I do, which is putting on the act.
Yeah.
The oh no, no, sure, sure. No, look how happy I am. Haha, look at this. Look at me dance. But
Yeah.
this is different.
This is the first time I have felt loved unconditionally by multiple sources in my life.
Mhm.
And I think sometimes I didn't allow myself to feel those things because I was so wound up, so tight, and so scared that I wasn't allowing myself to have these really nourishing relationships. And, when you're in depression, it's hard to reach out to people or to continue to hold yourself accountable socially. I have tried to hold myself accountable and not just drop people
Mhm.
because I'm out of energy or whatever, at least letting people know, practicing good communication. Physically, yeah, as I discussed, I've been having a lot of pain, and I've been going to some free clinics, and the doctor said, you sit too much. You sit at work, you sit on the drive down to work, you sit when you get home, you sit when you have downtime. You just have to start moving, or you're going to have some really bad health issues. So I'm going to try and take a short walk at lunch every day. So, Chris, if you want to join me, it's just like a 15-minute walk
Yep.
just to get the blood moving. Um, it's the small things, And then we've started listening to TED Talks because we have an hour and a half drive down to work,
Yep.
and we want to utilize that time to learn. And
Naturally.
the last TED Talk we listened to was by a guy who couldn't focus for more than 5 minutes, had a C average, and is now like a multi millionaire. And he's done
Jeez.
all these incredible things. And he said, all you have to do is just do a little bit, at a time. Just like he's like, I wanted to lose all this weight. I wanted to get better activity, but rather than do that, I decided to promise myself that I was going to hike all of these trails in the area or whatever it was. And of course, you can't do it right away if you're not in shape. It starts with like just putting the phone down, going out, trying the first 15 minutes of the first hike, and you just get off. You just get up and you move. And so I've been trying to utilize that a little bit more and manage my time a little bit more. So I have decided to promise myself that I'm going to do all the hiking trails in my area, which is going to take a lot of work, me getting into shape because some of these trails were really, really difficult.
Yeah.
And I am really weak. I'm really, really, really weak. And I've got like all kinds of fun physical problems like plantar fasciitis. My feet
Oh
hurt,
no.
and my ankles hurt, and my hip hurts, and my left knee hurts when I go downhill and it gets swollen, and all these things. But I really strongly believe that if I um, exercise more and I get back into a better healthy shape, that the pain will be a little bit less, maybe not totally better, but less,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
and hopefully help my mental health. And one of the TED Talks I was listening to reminded me of something that we had talked about closer to the beginning of our podcast journey. And he was saying, we had talked about the fact that maybe depression has nothing to do with that there's something wrong with you, that you're crazy, it's all in your head, but maybe it's an indicator that there's something wrong. And
Mm.
the society that we've built is super lonely. And he was talking about how they were trying to implement antidepressants over in this area of the Philippines. And they're like, no, 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 no. We have antidepressants. And they were like, what are you talking about? And I said, well, this man had depression. He was working in, the rice fields. He'd stepped on a bomb that was
Mm-hmm.
left over from the war, blew up, lost his leg, was in a lot of pain and had to go back into the fields to work. And he was just having too much PTSD. He stopped getting out of bed. He was in pain. He was scared. And so the whole council of that town came to his house and sat down with him, and they talked with him, and they figured out what was kind of bothering him, what he was feeling. And they're like, okay, he can't work in the rice fields. We've got to get him um, a cow. He can work from home. He can be with the animals at home. And
Yeah.
so they navigated this whole situation where there was too many triggers. It was too scary. It was too painful for him to go back to the field. So they made a whole new, as a group, made a whole new life for him. They bought him the cow. They got him set up with a farm, and voila! Suddenly he was happy again. And everything was working. And can you imagine if our society here in North America was like that? If
Yeah.
your friend stops calling you back, and instead of getting mad at them, like, oh, I guess they have better things to do, you go over there and you bring their family members and their friends that love them and you sit down with them, like, are you okay? What's going on? You know,
Yeah.
we kind of just ignore and brush off this like depression. And I think the biggest thing is that we as humans are tribal, and we are in this day and age disbanding our tribes
Yeah.
because independence. So this year I want to continue with the spirit of our podcast, which was to reach out, to create a community, to maybe be inspired to think of new ways to help, or create groups online like Discord, or so maybe one of you have an idea for a nonprofit or something. And so I want to bring that spirit into 2020, I think, of just
That
loving on each
sounds.
other.
Yeah. That sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you guys for
guys.
listening. Happy 2020.
Yes. Happy 2020. Let us make this 2020 a happy one. We know that the world is kind of rough out there. Not everything is really going the way that we would all hope sometimes, but if we stay together, if we work together, if we do the best we can, then hopefully things will turn out okay. As for us, follow us on Instagram at HAYHU Podcast. Like our Facebook page, subscribe to the subreddit. If you want to support us directly, visit our Patreon, Or if you want to send us something directly, go ahead and email mailbag@howareyougholdingup.com.
You are always welcome to send us a message. We love hearing from you. It brightens our day. We talk about it.
Yep.
There's been a few messages we got that I cried when we got it because it just really touched me. So thank you guys again. And as always,
Don't
don't
tell
tell
us
us
to
to
just
just
get
get
over
over
it.
it.